Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Now What podcast. My name is Glenn Sharp. I am the president and CEO of Sharp Leadership Development. This is episode 6, and this is somewhat of a special episode because I just finished a coaching session with a client, and a subject came up that is in the book, Now What. It's a subject that I discussed with Johnny during his second session in regards to changing the culture, and I thought it would be a great subject for our podcast. One of the things that Johnny asked me during the course of our sessions was, what do I do? How do I build a culture? How do I change things on my team? And in session 2, we talked a lot about culture. And one of the things I want you guys to think about in regards to culture is culture is defined at the micro level, not the macro level. Most people think that the executive team or the company overall, the HR department, or someone else is responsible for their culture. Nothing could be further from the truth. Culture is defined at the micro level. That means intact teams and the managers who are above the intact teams, they are responsible for their team's culture. Now, certainly the higher ups, the management team, the executive team, whatever you want to call them, can certainly help you with your culture. But I'll just have a question for you. When was the last time the CEO or a vice president of operations hung around your team? I'm sure they've met your team before, but they don't hang out with them all day, every day. And one of the things I had to explain to Johnny is, as the manager of your team, you are responsible for your team's culture, no one else. And you define the culture. You define whether or not the culture is going to be one that's inviting or one that's going to be stressful. And in the book, I talk about an example when I was a young district manager at Speedway. I used to tour my stores, obviously, and I had 2 stores that were almost identical. They were both raised and rebuilt, so they had brand new everything. And one store that I walked into, literally, it felt like someone died. When I walked in there, it just felt tense. And have you guys ever gone to a couple's house that just finished fighting, and you have that, there's just that atmosphere, there's just that stress level. You can't really quantify it, but it's there, and you know it's there. And that's what it was like walking to this store. And then lo and behold, I walk in, and no one's smiling, everyone's kind of was downtrodden and kind of tense. And then the store manager walks out from his office, and he's got a scowl on his face, and he's mumbling under his breath, and it was really uninviting. And then I walk into another store, and I call this store the party store. Right? As soon as I walk into the store, actually before I walk in the store, I start smiling and I start laughing because I know they're going to give me a bunch of grief about my Dallas Cowboys. Right? I'm a huge Cowboy fan, and they just got beat by the Giants the night before, and I know they're going to give me grief. But it's fun-loving. They laugh, right? They're always glad to see me. They're always glad to see their customers. It literally feels like they're hardly even working at all, that they're just having a good time, even though they are working hard. And I ask people all the time, in an honest moment, what store do you think I visited more? And I'm just being honest. I visited the party store more than I did, let's just call them the funeral store, right? Because it's more fun to be around them. And I'm pretty sure their customers followed suit based on their sales figures. The party store obviously had more sales, much more sales increases. And I would attribute that to the culture. Because in the party store, the store manager was that exact type person. They were fun-loving, they were sweet, they really cared about people, they loved to joke around, they loved to mix it up a little bit and have some fun, and they certainly loved to give me a little grief in regards to my Cowboys. One of the things I want you to think to yourselves about is, if you were your employee, would you want to work for you? It's an interesting question in the coaching room. Would you want to work for you? Do you make it fun? Do you make it inviting? Do you make people want to come to work? And there's a lot of different ways to make things interesting. To be honest with you, most people think money is the driver of employee retention, and it's not. It never has been. Right now, certainly there are individuals that leave for the green. I get it, but there's really not much you can do about that. Right? The number one reason why people leave their jobs is the manager. The new number two that I see with my clients is career path and developments. Right? But I want you to think to yourself in regards to your culture, all right? And whether or not you make it something that's inviting and make people want to come to work. So I had a conversation with my client today, and we talked a little bit about basically the opposite, the enemy of culture, which is complacency. And that's really the subject that I want to review with you guys today. Complacency, how to recognize it, what to do with it. So what do I mean by complacency? So for me, what I mean is you've got individuals who on your team who literally are working at 30 miles an hour when they should be working at 70 miles an hour. They have settled on mediocrity. Right? And so much so settled are they that they believe that mediocrity is actually excellence. And Johnny, as a new manager, has to go into this organization or go onto this team, and he actually has to paint a picture of what he wants and actually set a new standard. And for a lot of individuals, especially ones that have settled on mediocrity, you would think he's asking for him to get rid of his firstborn child. I mean, it is absurd to them that someone would ever ask them to work that hard, even though they're not working hard at all. And one of the things that you have to do is you have to recognize it when you see it. But as a leader, you have to be able to stand up and say, listen, this is the standard, right? And this is what I am looking for. And this has to be the case. Now, one of the ways I start is through the concept of bright spots. Right? So what's a bright spot? A bright spot is someone on a team who, despite the limitations, despite all the circumstances that happen on a team, they flourish. I always talk to them first. Right? So this is really making sure I stay proactive rather than reactive. If you recall the green line versus the red line from our second episode together, doing the work up front will pay dividends down the road. So imagine a scenario where I meet with my supervisors or I meet with some of my bright spots, and we get together and we talk about what are best practices, what are some of the things that we want to accomplish, right? And whether or not it's reasonable, my goals, whether or not it actually can be done. And once I get their go-ahead, the bright spots, what I do is I use those bright spots to help me sell to those who are complacent, right? Because I believe that the most powerful pressure in the world is peer pressure. When I was young and full of beans, I used to be a baseball player. I used to be a catcher. Every single championship team that I've ever been a part of, the coaches never disciplined us, right? The captains and some of the leaders on the team, we disciplined our own. So I had one particular player that literally did not hustle, and we lost by a run. And when he got back to the dugout, man, did I give him grief. And I'm not going to tell you what I said to him, but it was not nice. Right? I was not happy at all. And I read him the riot act. And then afterwards, when we were having beers in the parking lot, that verbal abuse continued. Right? Because I wanted to send a message to this person. I wanted to let them know, either get on board to our culture or quit. Now, that's different than the coach actually getting on his case. And you guys know it. When a peer actually gets on your case, that has a profound effect, a lot more devastating than when a manager or a coach gets on your case. You expect your manager, you expect your coach to get on your case, but when a peer does it, it is devastating to individuals. So going back to my example with the bright spots, I will ask them, hey, I need you to be my eyes and ears out there. I need you to help me hold these people accountable. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a meeting with my people, and the bright spots are going to be in the meeting as well. And I'm going to ask the bright spots to literally set the precedent. I'm going to let them actually speak to the group and ask them, hey, I want you to let these guys know not only what the plan is, but it absolutely can be done because you have done it before. So I'm going to use the assets at my disposal, and those bright spots are an amazing asset for me. Right? They not only let them know what they're going to be doing, but actually it can be done. But they're also going to let them know that they're going to be monitoring the situation as well. And those in the crowd that are complacent, those who have been lazy, or those who have been settled on mediocrity for an extended period of time, they have a choice at that point. And I'm going to let them know as their leader, before the bright spots speak, I'm going to let them know my expectations and that I need to see improvement and that what I see out there is not acceptable and you have a choice. If you don't want to be on board with us and if you don't want to be part of this organization, it's nothing personal, but you cannot work at 30 miles an hour when I expect you to work at 70 miles an hour. Right? We all have to pull our weights, right? And it's not going to go well for you if you do not. Similar to that individual that was on my baseball team. Now, I'm certainly not going to speak to an employee the same way I spoke to that individual. Baseball players, ball players, some organizations, they speak to each other a little more harsh than most people. But I will set the tone as the leader of the group and let them know this is not acceptable behavior. Right? And they have a choice. Either they can get on board and start to behave the way they should, or they can quit. Right? And I don't want them to quit. I certainly don't want to fire them. But if I get into a situation where they refuse to quit and they refuse to change, sometimes you have to make a tough decision. Right? And certainly I'm going to counsel them. Certainly I'm going to coach them up the best I can. But if they do not conform, I have a choice. And this is one of the most important questions in management. One of the ones that I had to ask Johnny. Right? If you have someone who refuses to conform, refuses to get on board with their culture, what do you do? Right? And I put it in this context. I had a client one time where this particular person took over a team and he worked so hard the first 3 months to really get his team on board, and it was really working. It was starting to take hold, and the team was starting to really get into it. They're starting to see results. They really started to make some headway. And this client told me that they all came out of a meeting room one day after about an hour meeting, and the administrative assistant, who was not on board, who refused to change, who refused to move, literally said to one of the meeting participants as they were exiting, "I see you drinking the Kool-Aid." Right there and then, he had a choice. He realized this person's never going to change, right? And he got rid of her. He actually terminated her. And it was incredible. The next day, it was like a cloud was lifted from that group. Right? Because that particular person settled on complacency. They settled on a certain way that they want to do things, and they refused to change. And managing a team like that was literally like managing, or really like swimming in the ocean with an anchor around his neck. And he had to remove the anchor. Right? And unfortunately, that has to be the case. I want you guys to think differently about this. If you recall from episode 1, we talked about the results cone and changing the way you think. And one of the things I had to really impress upon Johnny in the book is, listen, you got to think differently about the way you discipline people and even terminating people, even though that's the last resort. When you discipline someone, you're not really talking to them. Okay? Yes, you're actually literally talking to them, but you're not really talking to them. When you terminate someone, you're not really talking to them, even though literally you are. In both cases, you're protecting the team. And that's important to understand the distinction. You're protecting the team. What I think about when I have somebody who's mediocre or complacent or defiant is, what's the effect on the rest of the employee population? If I'm an A-plus player and I watch and see someone work at half speed or be defiant or disrespectful, and my manager does nothing about it, what am I thinking? Right? I'm certainly questioning my manager. I'm certainly questioning whether or not I should be putting that much effort into my job. And that's what I want you guys to think about. Right? I heard something one day, and this is it's not off topic, I wouldn't say, but certainly it's a mindset. I heard somebody say one time, I don't own a gun because I hate the people outside. I own a gun because I love the people inside. I don't want to hurt anybody. I own a gun, but I don't want to hurt anybody, but I want to protect my family. And it's the same thing with work, right? Now, you're not going to have a gun at work, but the reason why you terminate someone, or the reason why you discipline someone, is to protect the family. And that's really what culture shaping is all about. That's the reason why I say culture is defined at the micro level, not the macro level. The manager of a particular team is responsible to set the tone. They're responsible to have a strong culture, not the executive team. But dealing with complacency is tough. There's no doubt about it. I will be the first to admit it. It's not fun to deal with. But remember, you're a manager, right? And managers are responsible to make sure that they protect their people. So I hope this helps. We'll be talking a lot about this type of thing, because I want to talk about not only the good stuff, but the poor stuff too, the bad stuff too, right? It'd be very naive to think management is always just fun and things just always go well. There are some unreasonable people on this planet, right? And unfortunately, you run into some from time to time. The good news is that they're the vast minority, right? Of 100 people out there, maybe 2 or 3 are really fall into that category. But unfortunately, the 2 or 3 can really screw up a team. And I ask classes all the time, how many people does it take to mess up a team? And the answer obviously is 1. All right, so the question that I have, and I guess I'll close for you guys, is what if you don't do it? What if you don't address it? What if you don't, right, set the culture on your team? I promise you it's not going to get better organically. It never does. Right? If somebody's defiant, they're not just going to get better on their own. Really what you're doing by not saying anything is sending a message that it's okay. Right? So you've got to nip it in the bud. You've got to make sure that you address it sooner rather than later. So I hope this helps. We'll talk more about this, but if you haven't already, go ahead and pick up my book. You'll see on the screen it's available on Amazon. It's obviously available in paperback, what I'm holding, but also ebook and soon to be Audible. I wish you guys the best of luck. I hope this episode helped you. Good luck with your leadership and management journey, and I will see you in episode 7.